Welcome all. This is Gateway 32. This is Libra, and this is for today, October 14th, up until October 19th. And so, in the context of the month, we're moving through the different gates that go through Libra, and we're building up to October 21st, which is a new moon in Libra. And then there's some impending energy release, it seems, around October 29th, 30th, as many are talking about a solar maximum, and as well as it being the polarity to the pagan holiday of Beltane, which is, of course, Hallows Eve on October 31st. And essentially, what we're looking at with this particular gate here in the middle of October is taking into account the splenic center right here. And all these gates symbolize different types of fears. You could see two of them are lit up, gate 44 and gate 32. Now, gate 32 is the fear of failure. And so that's the lowest expression of frequency in this particular gateway. And you could see here for these next couple days, and I should mention we just got off being having the sun um, move its neutrinos through gate 57. So that was right over here. So that was another splenic gate, and that's the fear of being caught out of, no, that's not the fear of being caught out of one step. That one is about intuition in the moment, spontaneous intuition. And that's been connected to the 20. So it might have been a blur for you in this last week, for many of you experiencing this kind of simultaneous awareness with Uranus in gate 20 and the sun activating it into manifestation, to throat definition, through the intuitive, the very psychic and intuitive gate 57. And it was certainly very powerful for me, connecting with all my gates of all the rest of the gates there, all the self-preservation gates of uh, those channels, particular channels, those individuated channels. And it seems that these last 7 days, so much has happened. We had the recent rise and fall of crypto, which is how they do it. No real surprise. The market's up, market's down. Right now, we're looking at silver and gold just running up and up and up, and that's pretty exciting. And all of a sudden, politicians are talking about peace after war, war, war. Now it's all this talk about peace. But of course, it's not that simple. But in the case of the Middle East, hopefully, I guess this is the next segment of the show. Hopefully, there's some evidence of a lasting peace in that area. Although it's hard, that area of the world is ruled by Mars and Pluto, and many of astrologers in the past have talked about it as a place of perpetual war, just because of, I think, the rulerships, yeah, Aries and Scorpio in those areas. So in a mundane world astrology, when you look at the astrology rulership for particular countries. And so we'll see how things go, but definitely we're in October, and me and Gary have been talking about in our shows on financial breakthroughs and crashes that it's very typical that there are significant financial transformations during the month of October. And with this coming October 21st new moon, we have it in Libra. And that means that Venus is ruling this new moon, and Venus is responsible for our finances. So more financial transformation awaits us. But I'll leave it at that in case I decide to do a video on the new moon, which might be what I could do next. So let's go over this very significant gate here, gate 32. You can see coming off the splenic center in the direction of the root center, or from the adrenals from the 54 up to 32. Usually with the 54, 54 is a gate of ambition, very strong ambition. And the gate of 32 is a fear of actually being well, it's a fear of failing. So I'm going to start with sharing a little about what Ra Ruhu said about this particular gateway. Now, he called it the gate of duration. And as I noted, it's connected to the 54, which is usually called the channel of transformation. And the 32 as a gate in the spleen center is about awareness. And as all the gates of the splenic center, it's a gate of fear as well. And so this gate of fear that's associated with this particular gate and all its lines is under the definition of duration. And so it has to do with continuity. And it's tribal. The circuitry in human design relates to individuated circuitry, collective circuitry, and tribal circuitry. So in this case, we're talking about the tribe, the success of the tribe, or the failure of the tribe, embodied in an individual. And so essentially, it's about the material success of the tribe. And so it is about whether it will be a success or not for the tribe. And there's some really interesting archetypal interpretations of this gate that characterize success and failure relative to the tribe, relative to the group, relative to ideas of isolation, for example, meaning to say one that, especially in earlier times, if you were isolated or separated from your group or tribe or family, that in itself precipitated failure and possible death. And so the recognition here is whether there will be transformation or not. 54 embodies ambition, but can that be satisfied is the question. So this is a process, this is a material tribal process of whether success can be achieved and thus one can transform and thus the tribe be transformed. Now, one really interesting aspect that Ra notes about this gate is that it regulates liquid in the body. And Ra talked about, as many know, that memory exists in the water of our body. And so the water in the cells carry this memory forth. It's a memory stream that's carried in our genes, in our cells. And so any activation here is going to indicate and speak to our deep, deep cellular memory. So this is going to relate to ourselves as as to our survival, as to our instinctual beingness, as to our nature. And the sense of some of these gates of the splenic center have to do with smell. And so throughout the life, throughout the experience of the life, what we're getting good at is smelling when something's not right or when something is not going to work. And so that we intuitively know. Now, the definition under this particular gate in the I Ching is the only thing which endures is change. Now, this is not about radical change or radical transformation. This gate is actually about a process that is very slow going. It's about recognition that to get somewhere, something has to be changed. And if you don't change, then it may not work. And so change is something that is necessary. Change is something that transcends the nature of individuated or egoic consciousness because it's not something to be taken personal in the life. We all go through a process where we recognize in ourselves and others, in groups, in cultures, in societies, in tribes that all of a sudden in a moment there's the recognition that change is necessary. It's that simple. It's not, and there's no need for personal identification. Oh, but that's mine. I made that. I created that. I did that. It's over. What was worked for the time being, and now it's time for something else. It's not a negation of the past. It's not something better than the past or something. It's just the next step. It's just the next rung of the ladder. It's just the next step. And so when something is done, it's done. It's time to move forward. That's it. There's something else. So change is not here something to be rejected. And it's very much, as Ra noted, it's about how one approaches the nature and necessity of change. And this will be relative to the different lines. If any of us have this gate in our design, it'll work relative to the particular lines. The lines are very powerful in human design. The lines determine in which way the energy processes itself. The first line is the investigation. The second line is the withdrawal and the coming out when it's correct, when it's invited to. The third line is trial and error. The fourth line is the network, the need to kind of control and organize what is occurring. The fifth line is exalted. It's the highest point. It's projected upon for leadership, for the highest usage of this particular energy. And the sixth line already looks in another direction to see what's next. Now, in this particular case, looking at the 32 and what it means to us in its most basic kind of representation frequency of, of our life, of our energy, as we're going to experience it in these next 6 days. We're looking for and we're looking at the feeling of fear in the body, fear, apprehension, hesitation when it comes up in the body, fear of failing. One thing I could note, I guess, is this very process that I'm doing right now, sharing my insights to the collective, through this video and audio format. And I've been doing this for years, but it's had several permutations. Sometimes I'm not even aware at what point, or it's not even something that's really overthought or over reflected or there's not a lot of mentation about it. It was just, for example, one day it was just very clear to me, oh, the next step is to do the gates, to do the gateways every 5 days, and to muse over and discuss almost for the collective the understanding that can be utilized through these particular portals of energy in our biofield and how we can relate to it as the sun moves through it, penetrates us through its particular neutrinos to each particular gate, and how we can experience that on a week-to-week level through hearing words about it and relating those words to ourselves. And so it wasn't like, oh, I failed and how I did it before. No, it was just that's over, and now there's another way. Now, is this new format that I'm doing, is it better than the old? I don't know. I actually really like my writings, and other people kind of did too, that I did on the month. And I kind of showed my write-ups. So now I'm not doing the write-ups so much more, so I'm going into the developmental frequency consciousness of each of these gates, which I like a lot because it allows me to share different stories of how the permutations occur throughout these frequencies. And so that's one example is my early videos had their own expression, their own valid, utilized or utility to support the collective. And so now I have a new kind of style or method that I'm utilizing, hoping that it's carrying forth with my intent. Whether it's better or for, whether the first way I did it was a failure or not. I mean, that's not there's no fear actually associated. I've come to such peace with my own purpose, which is to share my insights. I have the 2343 up here. I'm here to share, I get acoustic insights and I'm here to share them. Now, this is very individual, but I do have collective channels that bring forth the possibility of sharing with the collective. I have gates that activate channels to the throat center in order for me to communicate directly to the collective. All my channels, I should say, are connected. Single definition. I could do this on my own, in my own space. And so this is an important assessment that I share with you for the purpose of my title, which is The Failure of Fear. Because I don't have fear anymore in relationship to expression. I know it's my purpose. I know, as a being in this realm, that we all have only one purpose, one real purpose, and that's to share who we are, to share what we do well, what we enjoy doing, to share that with others. And that's a form of service. And so there's no failure in that. There's only sharing and expression and connecting with those who are um, are connected with that, who are receptive to that, who are part of this tribe or collective. I share with I share for those whom this is for. And, for those who, as I've said many times, who like this, enjoy the sound of my voice, like this is resonating and you're hearing it on multiple frequencies, reflections and refractions in through your own voice and experience. And such is the power of words and reflections. And so I say this too to kind of move past this first frequency really quickly because, you know, if there's something you've done in life that you're good at, that you've shared with others, then you know the feeling of that success. That there's no fear in that. You share your gifts. And there's no fear in that because you're sharing your gifts are not for everyone. They're for who they are for. And that's it. And that's enough. And so there's the power in that awareness. It's moving beyond this like deep fear in the genetics, that somehow what we're doing is not good enough. There is no not good enough. There's only doing it. There's only being and doing. And that's it. And through the being and doing and through repetition, because we as humans, we are day-to-day beings. We are beings of repetition, as boring as that sounds, especially as generators. We do the day-to-day routines. But the day-to-day essentially in life is the purpose of life, which is slow and gradual realizations and epiphanies of awareness. That is the truth of reality. It's something very patient, calm and lingering and gradual. There can be spurts and moments of speed, but really we're not here to be beings that are, going faster and faster and faster and faster until we catch fire and burn away to nothing. That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're an allowance of a gradual process. And that process occurs through the power of service to the world, service to others, sharing our talents with others. That's what it is. There's really nothing, not much more than that. And that itself is the seed of everything, of growth, of beingness, of practice, of work, of every expression of possibility of being human. We learn from each other and we grow from each other. And we serve and help and support in that which we are skilled at, that which is our talent to do. Fear is a parasitic energy, and it always needs something to feed on. So thoughts will build in the mind in order to feed the fear that the body feels. But, thoughts are thoughts. They move, whether you're open, centered on top, or defined. Thoughts are just what they are. They're just moving. The intelligence of the body moves everywhere. Living in the mind will always give way to failure because the assessment of the mind is itself an examination of failure. That's all it does. All it can do is recognize failure because nothing is ever good enough for the mind. The mind can never be satiated. And so the recognition is in the mirror of our everyday experience. Are we in service? Are we in support to others? Are we in appreciation? Are we in the gratitude? Is that being reflected back at us? Oh, it is. Okay, then that's what it is. Nothing more needs to be said. We're here to connect. And that connection creates something that builds in the consciousness of our cellular structure. And it builds on a day-to-day basis. And it builds so slow that none of us can really see or feel it. But it builds over a period of time. And so it becomes something much more greater than this kind of, what was it? We already forgot this like sense when we were younger, this sense of, oh, I'm not going to do this, oh, I'm not going to do that because I could fail. And what does that mean? What does that mean to fail? Like I've had so many discussions with friends, even recently. Failure, what is failure? Failure is just the awareness that at some point in time, something was not done or completed correctly. And there was an error. No, none of those words are correct. Failure really is just success before it reaches its highest frequency. Because no one learns anything if there's no mistakes. Corrections are always necessary, and corrections are always being made. It's a fluid process. But we teach in school and we have these old kind of instinctual, ancient kind of, genetic overlays, which of course feel the need to point out failure and that, oh, this is correct, oh, that's correct. But really, there is no failure. There's only different avenues of expression. And there's things that can be, perfected or, but that has to do with what we want to focus on, what we want to make our purpose. So fear is nothing if there's nothing to feed off of. If you don't mind your mind, then those thoughts will not feed on your energy. Those thoughts will just pass. And so essentially, like Rudd talked about this, that true, and here's his quote. It was a great quote. True success means no longer being ruled by the concept of success or failure. That's not that profound. That's just what I was getting at, is just the realization that those polaric concepts are irrelevant. There's only the process of becoming who you are. There's only the process of becoming and beingness. And in that process, consciousness is being raised within yourself. And that means the collective, because we affect everybody. You know, these Venn diagrams that we create through the biofield with others, it affects every second, every moment. Whether something is spoken out loud or not, it sits within the frequency of the field. And we're moving forth or we're moving backwards. But we're always moving. And when we moved enough in a certain direction, we can move the other direction. So getting back to what I was essentially getting at is there is something that occurs as we slowly begin to give up these outmoded attachments to the past. And we could call it whatever we want. Some call it karma, it's kind of exhausted. Really, it's just us carrying our energy forth and not leaving it behind in our memories or in our nostalgia. It's us moving forth with our energy and our focus of where we're at now. Oh, we were there. Now we're here. Now we're in change. Now we're in transformation to something else without attaching too much to the past. And so it is with that the myths of the past are dissolved. The myths of the concept of failure is dissolved. And so we're moving past that. And though we can't see it clearly, there's always a cosmic pattern in place. There's always a movement that our consciousness is taking through us. And the awareness of this has to do with the synchronicity of having our needs met, but not in a way that we're over focusing on it, like over focusing on money, or the materiality. This is a tribal channel. This is about monetary success. The 54 is about ambition. The 32 is about carrying through to the next steps. And so this is about the synchronicity of beingness, that the money will be there when we focus on service to others, because that's what we're all doing. This gets said so little. I hear so little of this. I don't understand that. To me, like I ad infinitum, I repeat in my own awareness that there's nothing more in life than to be of service to others. And that doesn't mean that we have to do something for others or do something to them or to ourselves, or it's just a matter of being sometimes. Sometimes it's just a matter of sitting with others. Whether you say something or not, your field is saying what it needs to say. Maybe there's a spark in your eye. Maybe there's a laugh. Maybe there's the general warmth that you bring to a gathering or someone else brings. It's nothing that needs to be coerced in or out of others. It's beingness. Even if you come together like we did in our Discord today, where we were silent for many points. It wasn't an intended silence. So we didn't say, okay, we're gonna have a moment of silence right now. Doesn't make any sense. We could do that, sure. You can coerce and you can, set up structures, and it's done all the time where people attempt to create spaces of now we're going to practice mindfulness, now we're going to practice silence, now we're going to practice that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's space for that. But sometimes there's just space for what is without just trying to control it or name it or define it. And it was just kind of nice. We had those moments where no one felt the need to interrupt the silence. And when someone spoke, they weren't interrupting the silence. It was just a new moment, and something needed to be spoken. And so it was. And so this gate is about preservation. It's a gift in the sense of preservation of the past. And that means at the same time not overriding the past, not closing the chapter on it completely, not negating it, not saying it's wrong and now we have to do right. But it's, again, it's a gradual moving forth. It's a gradual progression of moving beyond a certain frequency to a higher frequency level of awareness. And so this gate is very much about success. But that success, again, as I've been saying, is measured by you finding your personal strength, your skills, your talents, and finding a way by which you can express that to the collective and support that for others in the collective. And to let go of what's not working. And so, in a sense, you're aligning yourself with your own nature, with the nature of the world, and doing that which is correct for yourself and others. And so there's other awarenesses within this, as within all the gateways, there's certain key intuitions and awarenesses. And in this one, there lies the awareness of instinct, of who will be a good ally for the tribe and who will not. And this is just not seeing people as people, but just seeing who's good for what, who's correct for what, who's correct for or valuable for the community or business in which are this or that way. And so this gate expresses our genetic ancestry and the karma that we supposedly have built in this life. And so, in its highest frequency of reverence or veneration, what we're looking at a state of being is we're looking at being in a transcendent space where there's no more fear. There's no more fear in this particular gateway. There's no fear in what you're doing and how you're being who you are in this world. And in that process, you're sharing your gifts with the world. And Rudd really interestingly comments on the concept of the supernova, which is, how Ra got the human design channeling or messages that he got. There was a supernova at the end of, or sometime in January, where the neutrinos came in extra intense from an exploding star. And many people around the world got the hit, but it was just Ra who happened to be on ketamine on a certain frequency who got the full voice, the full energy of it. And it caused an explosion of water leaking from his body and an experience where he stared at the sun for hours. And so this is a very powerful example of what can occur in the DNA state as we allow ourselves to move forth in who we are through our genes, through our DNA, and cleansing it of its past memory, which is the water in the cells, and moving to new frequencies of awareness. And this, I feel, takes place through practices that have to do with being able to let go of the past, let go of the energy of the past, not letting go of the past, not deleting it or covering it up or ignoring what it is or what it was, but getting your energy back from it and giving the energy of others, giving their energy back to them. In Toltec practices, we call this recapitulation. In psychic energetic practices all over the world, it's just, you're just remembering who you are, remembering yourself back together, taking your energy back from those memories and giving the energy back of others back to them. Win-win situations where everybody gets their energy back so that we can all be more present in the moment, in a state moving forward. And that's really what it is. That's really what they're talking about here. And reverence has to do with knowing your place in that. Reverence and veneration, the way Red talks about it, and the way it seems to me in its highest frequency, in its channel of transformation as a tribal channel, expressing and regulating the water in the human body, seems to me to be about being able to hold the veneration of the past as well as the reverence of the future and one's place in the context of the past and the future, in the role and space of where one is, wherever one is on their ladder of consciousness. Because we all are moving in a direction, we're all growing, we're all taking steps forward, we're all taking steps backwards, we're always in movement. And this gate seems to me to express a huge reverence for the ancestral past, as well as a reverence for the future steps that we take and those other humans who are ahead of us and who've already taken those steps. And so we find ourselves somewhere in some kind of middle. And so in that, there is no success or failure. What does that mean anyway? I think many of us have come to the conclusion that one of the biggest horrors of this life is to be recognized or famous. What a horror that is, to not have one's freedom. Because that's essentially what that means. Freedom to just be. And not be addressed or recognized by so many energies of the world. Can you imagine how challenging that is? It's not the purpose of life. It never was. The purpose, it seems, is to be in flow and allow our consciousness to be in a certain flow state and not completely attached to that which is passing by. and through and above and below and to the side, but to just be in movement and to bring yourself forward with that movement. And so that's it. That's all I have for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully I didn't get too philosophically abstract, but related that to the energetic purpose of this particular gate of the past, this gate of the lowest frequency, the fear of failure, into what this channel represents, which is material success and the inevitability of that when you are just being what you are and being in service to the collective, to others. And there's really nothing more than that. All right, hope you all enjoyed. Um, Please share with others if you enjoyed it. Maybe others will resonate with it as well. Like and subscribe, and feel free to comment. I'll get back to writing more responses to comments because I really enjoy it. I really appreciate that. It does keep a connection, and a lot of you bring up a lot of great points, and there were some recent great points in some of the older videos I did. Sometimes I feel like the real education in these videos and comes from the comments. You know, I've always felt that for a long time. So I really appreciate you guys who write in. Thanks so much. And see you guys in the next video.